Nothing is random. We call something bad when it hurts. We call something good when it comforts us. And we assume life is either rewarding us or punishing us. But Buddhist wisdom approaches life differently, not as a courtroom, not as a casino, but as a living system, a web of causes and conditions, an ongoing river of change. And the moment you stop demanding that the river hold still, you begin to feel something you may have forgotten is even possible: ease. Right now, wherever you are, notice your jaw. Let it unclench a little. Notice your shoulders, the way they rise when the mind braces for impact. Let them soften. Take one slow breath that does not try to fix anything, a breath that simply says, "I am here." If you're listening at night, when thoughts get louder, or driving, when the body moves but the mind keeps looping, stay with me. We're not going to deny what you went through. We're going to change how you carry it. One of the simplest keys in Buddhism is also one of the hardest to accept when your heart is attached. Everything changes. This is impermanence, anicca, not a cold philosophical idea, but the basic rhythm of reality. Your body changes, your emotions change, relationships change, seasons change. The person you were 5 years ago is not the person you are now, and the person you are now will not be the person you will become. The pain you feel today is not carved into stone, even if it feels endless in the moment. It is a weather system moving through the mind and body, and weather always moves. The suffering begins when we argue with change. We don't just lose something, we demand it should not have been lost. We don't just experience an ending, we insist it should have lasted forever. We don't just feel grief, we add the second layer of suffering, the belief that grief is proof we are broken. Dukkha, the Buddha's word for suffering, is not simply pain, it is the friction created when the mind grips what cannot be gripped. Look at a river, if you have one near you, or picture one. It never clings to the water that passed a moment ago. It does not mourn yesterday's current. It does not panic about tomorrow's bend. It moves, it adjusts, it accepts the shape of the land without losing its own nature. It does not mean the river is weak, it means the river is wise. And your life, in many ways, is asking you to become like that. You've probably heard the story, or a version of it, because it has traveled across cultures for a reason. A farmer's horse runs away. The neighbors come and shake their heads. "How terrible," they say. The farmer looks at the empty stall and simply replies, "We'll see." The next day the horse returns, and it brings with it 2 wild horses. The neighbors return, their eyes wide. "How wonderful," they say. The farmer touches the horse's neck and says the same thing, "We'll see." Later, the farmer's son tries to ride one of the wild horses, falls, and breaks his leg. The neighbors arrive again, certain this time. "How awful." The farmer says, "We'll see." Then soldiers come to recruit young men for war. They see the broken leg and leave the son behind. The neighbors whisper, almost afraid of the farmer's calm, "How lucky." And the farmer, still looking at the larger sky, says, "We'll see." Oh, the point is not that the farmer felt nothing. The point is that he refused the mind's addiction to premature conclusions. He refused to lock life into a label too early. You may not see it yet, but many endings contain hidden doors, and many blessings carry hidden burdens. When Buddhism says everything changes, it is not trying to make you indifferent. It is trying to free you from the tyranny of the immediate storyline. So the practice here is simple, and it can be done in the middle of a difficult day. When something happens, and your mind tries to finalize it, tries to stamp it with ruined, wasted, never again, pause and whisper to yourself, "We'll see." Not as a magical spell, not as denial, but as a reminder that your perspective is partial. You are standing in one frame of a much longer film. Impermanence can sound frightening until you realize what it also means. It means anxiety is not permanent. It means grief is not permanent. It means the heaviness in your chest is not a life sentence. It means you are not trapped in today's emotional weather. And if you've been clinging to something you were afraid to lose, impermanence is also what makes love precious. A flower is beautiful because it blooms and fades. A sunset is holy because it does not stay. A conversation with someone you love becomes sacred when you stop assuming you have endless time. But the mind doesn't like this. The mind wants guarantees. The mind says, if I can just understand why, if I can just control the outcome, then I can relax. And yet life keeps proving something else. Control is limited, and understanding is often delayed. That's where the next principle arrives, not to threaten you, but to empower you. Cause and effect, karma. In modern language, karma is not a cosmic scoreboard. It is not a supernatural punishment system. It is the simple truth that what we do matters, what we say matters, what we repeat in the mind matters, because it shapes what comes next. Karma is patterns. Karma is momentum. Karma is the way a habit becomes a life. It is the way a small choice, repeated daily, becomes a direction. If you throw a stone into a still lake, the water doesn't argue, it responds. Ripples move outward, touching places far from where the stone entered. This is the feeling of karma when you start to see it clearly. Not in a fatalistic way, not in a self-blaming way, but in a responsible way. When you speak with kindness, it changes the room. When you speak with bitterness, it also changes the room. When you choose patience, you create a different future than when you choose explosion. The ripples extend beyond you, into your family, your work, your community, and then they come back, not as punishment or reward, but as the natural consequences of energy moving through a system. And there is one detail that matters deeply here, especially if you've been trying to do the right thing while secretly feeling empty. Intention shapes karma. Two people can perform the same action and plant different seeds. One gives to be admired, another gives because the heart cannot help but respond to suffering. One apologizes to end conflict quickly. Another apologizes because they truly see the impact of their words. On the outside, it looks similar. Inside, the seed is different. Buddhism keeps bringing you back to the inner weather because the inner weather creates the outer climate. This is where many people misunderstand the phrase, everything happens for a reason. They hear it as destiny, as if the future is fixed. But karma is not a prison. Karma is a garden. You may have planted certain seeds in the past, knowingly or unknowingly. Some of them are sprouting now. Some of them were planted by others, and you are dealing with their consequences. But here is the relief. Every day you plant new seeds. Every day you make small shifts that change the direction of your life. You are not doomed by yesterday's habits. You are shaped by them, yes, but not sentenced by them. There is a Zen story about a teacher who asks a student to bring him a sheet of paper. The student does. The teacher crumples it into a tight ball and says, "Straighten it." The student tries, smoothing it with the palm, pressing it against the table, working carefully. The paper becomes flatter, but the wrinkles remain. The student looks up, frustrated. The teacher says, "Your mind is like this. You can't pretend what happened never happened, but you can stop crumpling it further." This is karma in a language the heart can understand. You cannot always remove the past. You can choose what you do next. So if you've been carrying regret, here is a practice that does not shame you. Take a breath. Put one hand on your chest if you can. Ask yourself, gently, not harshly, what pattern have I been repeating? Not to accuse yourself, but to become honest. Where do I tighten? Where do I rush? Where do I avoid? Where do I seek control? Where do I abandon myself to please others? Then ask, what is one tiny action I can take today that plants a different seed? Tiny is important. Tiny is sustainable. Tiny is how a river carves stone. Maybe the tiny action is one honest conversation. Maybe it is one walk without your phone. Maybe it is one apology without excuses. Maybe it is one boundary. Maybe it is one moment of silence where you choose not to rehearse the story of how you were wronged. These small actions are not small in the karma of your life. They are the stones that shift the current. Now, if you've been hurt and the mind keeps saying, "Why did this happen to me?" I want you to hear this with compassion. That question is natural, but it often becomes a trap. It loops the mind back into helplessness. Buddhism invites a different question, not because your pain doesn't matter, but because you deserve a way forward. Instead of, "Why me?" consider, "What is this here to teach me?" Not in a forced positive thinking way, not in a way that excuses what happened, in a way that turns suffering into wisdom. Before we go deeper, let's touch the root that makes suffering feel so personal, so sharp, so hard to release. Attachment, clinging, the mind's belief that happiness depends on holding something still. We cling to people, we cling to roles, we cling to identities, we cling to a version of ourselves we thought we would become. We cling to the idea that if we do everything right, life will reward us with certainty. And when the universe refuses, we feel betrayed. But the betrayal is not always by life. Often, it is by our own expectations. Non-attachment is one of the most misunderstood teachings. People imagine it means not loving, not caring, becoming distant, becoming cold. But real non-attachment is not the absence of love. It is love without ownership. It is presence without grasping. It is the ability to hold what you have with tenderness while accepting that it is not yours to control. Think of holding a bird. If you hold it too loosely, it may fly away, yes, but if you grip it too tightly, you crush it. Love is like that. And many of the relationships that break us are not broken by the absence of love, but by the pressure of grasping, the demand that another person fill the holes we refuse to face. There's a story about a monk who walked from village to village carrying a small bowl. A wealthy man admired the monk's calm and offered him a precious jeweled cup. The monk accepted it with gratitude and placed it in his bag. That night, the monk could not sleep. He kept checking the bag, listening for footsteps, imagining theft. In the morning, he walked back to the wealthy man and returned the cup. The wealthy man was offended. "You don't want my gift?" The monk said, "I want my sleep." The gift was not the problem. The clinging was. This is what attachment does. It turns even blessings into burdens when the mind tightens around them. If you're honest, you know what it feels like. The promotion that made you proud also made you terrified to fail. The relationship that brought joy also brought fear of abandonment. The money that offered freedom also created anxiety about losing it. The praise that warmed you also made you dependent on being admired. Attachment is not just wanting something, it is believing you cannot be okay without it. So here is a practice that sounds small but can change your inner life. Choose one thing you are clinging to in your mind right now. One outcome, one person, one timeline, one image of how life should be. Take a slow breath and name it softly. I am clinging to this. Then ask, what am I afraid will happen if I let go? Let the answer come without rushing. You may find fear beneath the clinging, fear of being alone, fear of being ordinary, fear of being unlovable, fear of uncertainty. When you see the fear, bring compassion to it, not as a performance, as care. Of course I'm afraid. I'm human. That compassion loosens the grip more effectively than discipline ever will. Now we arrive at acceptance, a word that many people resist because they confuse it with surrendering their dignity. Acceptance is not resignation. Acceptance is clarity. It is the decision to stop fighting what is already here. It is looking at reality without flinching, without decorating, without denial. And that clarity becomes the foundation for wise action. If you can change something, acceptance helps you change it without panic. If you cannot change something, acceptance helps you stop bleeding energy into a wall. You feel the difference in the body. Resistance is tightness, clenched jaw, shallow breath, racing thoughts. Acceptance is exhale, shoulders dropping, mind widening, the ability to choose a response rather than react like a wound. There is another story, one that appears in different forms because it describes something so painfully human. A man is rowing a small boat on a foggy river. He is tired, tense, and already irritated by his own thoughts. Suddenly, another boat slams into his. His anger explodes. He yells into the fog, calling the other person careless, selfish, stupid. He keeps shouting, but the fog remains silent. Then the boat drifts closer, and he realizes it is empty. No one is inside. The anger collapses, leaving embarrassment, then sadness, then a strange calm. The collision still happened. The boat still hit him, but his story about it, his assumption of intention, his demand that someone should pay, that is what turned impact into suffering. How often do we do this in life? A message is not answered quickly and we decide we are unwanted. A friend forgets something and we decide we are not valued. A mistake happens and we decide the universe is against us. The event is the first arrow. The story we build is the second arrow. Buddhism teaches that pain is inevitable, but the second arrow is optional. The Buddha described this with the image of two arrows. The first arrow is life's unavoidable pain. Illness, loss, disappointment, aging. The second arrow is what the mind adds. This shouldn't be happening. I can't handle this. This means I'm doomed. This means I'm not enough. The first arrow hurts. The second arrow multiplies suffering, and the mind keeps shooting it again and again, not because it hates you, but because it has learned this habit of interpretation. So practice begins with catching the second arrow, not perfectly, not instantly, gently. The next time you feel emotional pain, pause and ask, what is the first arrow and what is the second? The first arrow might be, they ended the relationship. The second arrow might be, I will never be loved again. The first arrow might be, I lost the job. The second arrow might be, I'm a failure. When you separate them, you create space. And in that space, you can respond with wisdom instead of panic. Now, acceptance does not mean you pretend you like what happened. It means you stop arguing with the fact that it happened. This is the shift from being trapped in no to stepping into, okay, what now? It is the difference between drowning and swimming. There's a simple image that explains this. Imagine you are caught in a strong current. If you thrash wildly, if you fight the water in every direction, you exhaust yourself and you sink. But if you stop for a moment, if you let your body float, if you align with the current long enough to breathe, you can then angle toward the shore. Acceptance is that floating, not defeat, survival, wisdom. And from this place, you begin to notice the hidden lessons inside hardship, not as a forced silver lining, but as real transformation. This is where suffering becomes a teacher. You may have heard the story of the butterfly and the cocoon. A person finds a cocoon and watches it day after day, fascinated. One day, a small opening appears. The butterfly struggles for hours, pushing and trembling, trying to widen the gap. The person, moved by compassion, takes a small tool and gently opens the cocoon, making the exit easy. The butterfly emerges quickly, but its body is swollen, its wings weak, it cannot fly. It crawls, dragging itself, and soon it dies. What the person did not know is that the struggle is what forces fluid into the wings, strengthening them for flight. The difficulty was not cruelty, it was development. Now, this story is not telling you that suffering is always good. It is telling you that some forms of struggle have purpose. It is telling you that the path of growth is rarely comfortable. And if you are in a season of pressure, it may be forging something in you that comfort never could. Maybe your heartbreak is teaching you boundaries. Maybe your failure is teaching you humility and resilience. Maybe your loneliness is teaching you to become your own friend. Maybe your uncertainty is teaching you faith, not as belief in a perfect outcome, but as trust in your capacity to face what comes. The lesson is not always obvious in the moment. Sometimes it arrives months later, quietly, when you realize you are calmer, wiser, more compassionate, more alive than you used to be. Try this exercise, not as homework, but as a gentle mirror. Think of a painful event from your past, something you survived. At the time it felt like the end. Ask yourself, what did it change in me? Maybe it made you stronger. Maybe it made you softer. Maybe it forced you to grow up. Maybe it made you more sensitive to others' suffering. Maybe it taught you what you will never tolerate again. Even if you wouldn't choose it, something in you was forged by it. This is the alchemy of human life. In Buddhism, there is a metaphor of gold refined by fire. The fire does not hate the gold. The fire reveals what is not gold. It burns away what is not essential, and what remains is more pure, more luminous. Your difficult seasons can do the same, not because you deserved pain, but because you are capable of transformation. But transformation doesn't happen by thinking alone. It happens by presence. And this is where mindfulness enters, not as a trendy word, but as a lifeline. Mindfulness is the art of returning to what is real, right now, without judgment. It is the practice of coming home to the body, the breath, the moment, instead of living in the mind's endless projections. Most suffering happens in time travel. The mind lives in the past, replaying what should have been said, what should have been done. Or it lives in the future, rehearsing catastrophe, trying to predict every possible loss. The body is always in the present, but the mind abandons it. Mindfulness is the act of returning, again and again, not to escape your life, but to meet it. Let's do a small practice together, right now, in the simplest way. Feel your breath. You don't need to change it, just notice it. Notice where you feel it most clearly. Maybe in the nostrils, maybe in the chest, maybe in the belly. Now notice your hands. Are they tense? Let them soften. Notice your face. Is it braced? Let it loosen. Now notice the thoughts moving in the background, like a radio playing in another room. You don't have to fight them. You don't have to follow them. Just notice, thinking, and return to breath. This is the beginning of freedom, not because thoughts stop, but because you stop believing you must obey them. There is a Zen story about a student who comes to a teacher and says, "My mind is full of thoughts. How do I stop them?" The teacher pours tea into a cup. He keeps pouring even as the tea overflows. The student says, "Stop, the cup is full." The teacher says, "Yes, and that is your mind. Before we discuss peace, you must first notice how full you keep it." The point is not to shame the student. The point is awareness. Mindfulness begins with seeing the overflow. When you see it, you can choose. You can choose to set down one thought instead of carrying it for hours. You can choose to pause before reacting. You can choose to respond from clarity rather than impulse. That single pause changes relationships. It changes outcomes. It changes your karma in the most practical sense. And mindfulness is not only done on a cushion, it is done while eating, when you taste rather than scroll. It is done while walking, when you feel the ground rather than rehearse arguments. It is done while listening, when you are truly present rather than planning your reply. It is done while washing dishes, when you let ordinary life become meditation. You don't have to leave your life to practice Buddhism. Buddhism is how you inhabit your life. Now, let's talk about the deepest relief hidden inside these teachings, the relief your nervous system has been waiting for. Many of your fears come from the illusion of control. The mind believes, if I can control everything, I can be safe. But life has never offered absolute control. Life offers participation. Life offers wise effort. Life offers adaptation. And when you stop demanding certainty, you discover a different kind of safety, the safety of being able to meet what comes. There is a story about a king who stood beside a river, watching the water surge. He asked his advisor, "Can we stop this river from flowing?" The advisor said, We can build walls, and the river will find a way around them. We can block it, and it will rise, overflow, and take what it wants. We can try to command it, and it will laugh at us. But we can learn where it flows, and build our city with wisdom. The king wanted mastery. The advisor offered harmony. This is Dharma in a way that does not feel abstract. Dharma can be understood as the way things are, the underlying order, the natural law of life's unfolding. Not an invisible puppet master controlling events, but the rhythm of cause and condition, the way change happens, the way seasons turn, the way what you resist persists, the way what you accept transforms. When you align with Dharma, you stop fighting the river, and you start learning how to cross it. And yes, sometimes this alignment feels like faith. Not faith that everything will turn out exactly how you want, but faith that life is not random chaos, that your suffering is not meaningless, that your heart is not being tortured for entertainment, that there is a larger unfolding you cannot yet see from your current vantage point. Imagine standing too close to a painting. All you see are brushstrokes and dark patches. It looks messy, even ugly, but if you step back, the image emerges. In the middle of pain, you are too close. You see only fragments. Dharma invites you to step back, not by escaping life, but by widening perspective. We'll see, as the farmer said, this chapter is not the whole book. There is another story that carries this feeling. A person is lost at sea during a storm. Waves rise like walls. The wind screams. The person panics and fights the water, flailing, swallowing salt, exhausting themselves. Then, in a moment of desperation, they stop. They let their body float. They stop trying to win against the ocean. They focus on breath, on staying calm, on moving with the water rather than against it. Hours later, the current carries them closer to shore. Rescue becomes possible not when they overpowered the sea, but when they stopped wasting energy resisting what they could not change. That is not resignation. That is acceptance paired with intelligence. That is the difference between drowning and surviving. So where does this leave you, right now, with your particular pain, your specific story, the thing you can't stop thinking about? It leaves you with a choice that is both small and profound. You can keep asking life to be different than it is, or you can meet life as it is and choose your next step. You can keep tightening around the outcome, or you can loosen and find peace in the process. You can keep firing the second arrow, or you can learn to set it down. And if you're thinking, that sounds good, but my pain is real, yes, of course, let's honor that. Buddhism does not ask you to pretend you're fine. It asks you to see clearly, to feel fully, and to stop adding unnecessary suffering on top of inevitable pain. It asks you to become intimate with your own mind, not as an enemy, but as a garden that needs tending. There is a story of a person who came to a teacher and said, "I am full of anger. People have hurt me. I can't let it go." The teacher said, "Show me your anger." The person clenched their fists and said, "It's here." The teacher asked, "How do you hold it?" The person said, "Tight." The teacher nodded and said, "And when you hold it tight, who hurts?" The person looked down at their white knuckles, at the tension in their arms, and understood without another word. Anger is like a knot you keep tightening. It may be justified, but it still binds you. This doesn't mean you tolerate harm. It means you don't poison yourself with the constant replay of it. Compassion in Buddhism includes compassion for yourself, the part of you that has been carrying weight too long. Try a small ritual tonight or tomorrow morning. Write the story you keep replaying in 2 versions. In the first version, write it exactly as the wounded mind tells it, with all the blame, all the fear, all the conclusions. Let it out. In the second version, write the same events, but remove the predictions, remove the final labels, remove the catastrophic identity statements. Replace "this ruined my life" with "this hurt me deeply." Replace "I'll never be okay" with "I feel afraid right now." Replace "I was worthless" with I was treated in a way that made me feel small. Do you feel the difference? The events may not change, but the nervous system changes, because the second version is closer to reality and less saturated with poison. Now, one of the most powerful parables for suffering is the one about salt, because it speaks directly to the feeling of being overwhelmed. A teacher gives a student a handful of salt and tells them to put it into a cup of water and taste it. The student does and spits it out. It's bitter, unbearable. Then the teacher leads the student to a lake and tells them to pour the same salt into the lake, then taste the lake water. The student does, and it tastes normal. The teacher says, "The salt is your pain. The bitterness depends on the size of the container." This is not dismissing pain. It is teaching expansion. When your inner world is small, a single loss seems to poison everything. When your inner world grows, the same pain exists, but it does not dominate the entire life. Mindfulness expands the container. Compassion expands the container. Wisdom expands the container. Community expands the container. A sense of meaning expands the container. So ask yourself, gently, what has made my container small lately? Maybe isolation, maybe overwork, maybe sleep deprivation, maybe carrying everything alone, maybe shame. Then ask, what expands me? Maybe nature, maybe prayer, maybe meditation, maybe talking to someone who truly listens, maybe exercise, maybe creating something, maybe service. This is not a cute self-care suggestion. This is Dharma in action. If you want to suffer less, expand the container. And expansion also happens through perspective. In Zen, there is an image of a cracked pot, often told like this. A woman carries water every day with 2 pots on a pole. One pot is perfect, the other has a crack, and by the time she reaches home, the cracked pot is only half full. The cracked pot feels shame. It apologizes, calling itself useless. The woman smiles and says, "Have you noticed the flowers on your side of the path?" The cracked pot looks and sees wildflowers blooming along the road. The woman says, "I planted seeds on that side because I knew you would leak. Every day you water them. Your floor has been feeding beauty." This story is not asking you to romanticize your wounds. It is inviting you to see that what you call broken may still be valuable, may still be life-giving, may still be part of a larger design you can't see from the inside of your shame. Many people you admire have cracks. Their compassion came from pain. Their wisdom came from failure. Their softness came from being hardened and then choosing to soften again. Your life is not disqualified by what happened to you. It may be shaped by it in a way that later becomes medicine for someone else. Now, let's return to the phrase that started all of this, because I don't want it to become a cliche in your mouth. Everything happens for a reason can become toxic if it's used to bypass emotion. It can become a weapon when people say it to someone who is grieving, as if grief is a misunderstanding. That's not what we're doing here. We're not using it to silence pain. We're using it to create meaning after we honor pain. Meaning does not mean, "I'm glad this happened." Meaning means, "I will not let this happen for nothing." Meaning means, "I will extract wisdom." Meaning means, "I will not stay trapped in the same pattern." Meaning means, "I will grow my container." Meaning means, "I will turn this into a turning point." And this is where the Buddhist understanding of karma becomes incredibly gentle. Karma does not say, "You deserve this." Karma says, "Everything you do matters." It gives you dignity. It gives you leverage. It says, even if the past was heavy, your next breath is new. It says, even if you were harmed, you can still choose how you live now. It says, even if you feel powerless, small actions shift the current. So what do you do when you're in the middle of suffering and you can't see the lesson yet? You practice what the Zen teachers call beginner's mind. You stop pretending you already know. You stop making your pain into a final identity. You become curious, not in a detached way, but in a living way. What is this trying to show me? Where am I attached? What am I afraid of? What am I avoiding? What is life asking me to release? What is life asking me to develop? And you take the smallest step you can take with integrity. If you lost someone, maybe the step is honoring them by living more fully rather than closing down. If you were betrayed, maybe the step is learning to trust your intuition and strengthening boundaries. If you failed, maybe the step is returning to effort without self-hatred. If you're aging and afraid, maybe the step is making peace with change and investing in what is real. Connection, presence, service, gratitude. Let's talk about gratitude carefully, because gratitude is often misunderstood. Gratitude is not pretending everything is good. Gratitude is recognizing what is still here. It is the practice of not letting pain erase the whole picture. You can grieve and be grateful in the same day. You can be anxious and grateful in the same breath. You can feel lost and still notice the beauty of small things, a warm cup, a friend's message, the quiet of early morning light. Gratitude expands the container too. In Buddhism, compassion is not only for others, it is for the parts of you that are struggling. When you sit with your own fear and offer kindness rather than criticism, you create inner safety. And inner safety is what allows change. A nervous system that feels attacked cannot transform, it can only defend. This is why harsh self-talk keeps you stuck. It is like trying to heal a wound by hitting it. There is a story sometimes told as the guest house. A person's house fills with visitors, joy, sorrow, anger, shame, anxiety. The person tries to throw out the unpleasant guests, but they keep returning louder. Then a wise friend says, treat them all as guests, welcome them, offer them tea. They are here to teach you something. The person learns to say, hello, anger, without becoming anger. Hello, sorrow, without drowning in sorrow. Hello, fear, without obeying fear. The guests come and go, the house remains. This is mindfulness again. You are not your thoughts, you are not your feelings. You are the awareness that can hold them. And that awareness is more stable than the stories you keep believing. When you begin living this way, the phrase, everything happens for a reason, shifts from a slogan to a lived experience. You begin noticing patterns. You begin noticing how certain choices create certain emotions. You begin noticing how clinging produces anxiety and how letting go produces relief. You begin noticing how honesty creates intimacy and how avoidance creates distance. You begin noticing how small habits create big outcomes. You begin noticing Dharma not as a mystical force, but as the natural order of things. Now, there will still be times when life hits you with something you did not choose. A diagnosis, a sudden goodbye, a financial collapse, a betrayal you never saw coming. Buddhism does not promise immunity. It promises a way to meet what comes without losing yourself. One of the most practical teachings here is the raft. A person needs to cross a dangerous river. They build a raft out of branches and rope and use it to reach the other side. Once across, they face a choice. Do they carry the raft on their back for the rest of the journey because it once saved them, or do they leave it and continue forward unburdened? The raft is useful, but it is not meant to become a permanent weight. Many of us carry old coping mechanisms like rafts long after they are needed. We carry numbness, we carry people-pleasing, we carry overworking, we carry control. We carry the identity of the strong one. These rafts once helped us survive, but now they might be keeping us from living. So ask yourself, what raft am I still carrying? What habit once protected you but now exhausts you? What story once gave you meaning but now limits you? What defense once kept you safe but now keeps you isolated? You don't have to drop it all at once, but you can begin to set it down piece by piece, breath by breath. And here is where a quiet truth appears, one that can change how you experience uncertainty. Peace does not come from having all the answers. Peace comes from learning to live with the questions. Your mind wants closure, but life often offers mystery. When you can sit in not knowing without panic, you become free. You can act wisely without needing guarantees. You can love without demanding forever. You can do your best without gripping the result. This is not passive. This is deeply strong. There is a story about a candle lighting another candle. The first candle does not lose its flame by sharing. It remains bright. This is compassion in action. When you share warmth, you do not become colder. When you offer kindness, you do not become poorer. When you help another person carry their pain, you often find your own pain becomes lighter, not because it vanished, but because your life becomes larger than your suffering. If you are overwhelmed, here is a simple practice that is both spiritual and practical. Do one small act of kindness today without telling anyone. Something tiny. Let someone merge in traffic. Send a message of appreciation. Hold a door. Leave a generous tip if you can. Offer patience to someone who is struggling. This is not about being good. It is about shifting your mind from obsession with your own pain to connection with life. It expands the container. It changes karma. It changes you. Now, I want to speak directly to the part of you that feels stuck. The part that says, I understand these ideas, but I can't feel them. That is normal. Understanding is not the same as transformation. Transformation happens when practice meets repetition. When you return to the breath again and again, even for 10 seconds at a time, when you catch the second arrow again and again, when you loosen your grip on an outcome again and again, when you choose one tiny seed again and again, this is how the nervous system learns safety. This is how the mind learns flexibility. This is how wisdom becomes embodied. So let's make it extremely simple, so simple your mind can't argue. The next time you feel anxiety rising, do 3 things. First, name it. Anxiety is here. Naming creates distance. Second, feel your feet or your seat, something solid. Grounding tells the body it is not falling. Third, take one slow breath and lengthen the exhale, because the exhale signals the nervous system to soften. Then ask, what is the next wise action? Not the perfect action, the next wise action. Sometimes the next wise action is to drink water. Sometimes it is to step outside. Sometimes it is to send one message. Sometimes it is to do one task and stop spiraling into the rest of the week. Life is lived in the next step. There is a reason Zen stories are short. They are designed to bypass the mind's addiction to complexity. They offer a mirror, not a lecture. So, let me offer you another mirror. A person is walking and sees a rope on the ground. In the dim light, they think it is a snake. Their body floods with fear. They jump back, heart pounding. Then they look closer. It is just a rope. Nothing changed on the ground, but everything changed in the body. The difference was perception. This is how much interpretation shapes suffering. Your pain is not always a rope mistaken for a snake. Sometimes it is truly a snake, a real threat, a real loss. But the mind often adds extra snakes, imagined futures, exaggerated conclusions, old memories projected onto new situations. Mindfulness helps you see what is actually here. Compassion helps you hold what is actually here. Wisdom helps you respond to what is actually here. And when you start doing that, the idea of an invisible order stops being superstition and becomes something you can feel. You start noticing how life moves in seasons. Some seasons are for building, some are for letting go, some are for healing, some are for learning, some are for resting. The suffering intensifies when you try to force summer during winter. Dharma is the acceptance of seasonality. You may be in a winter right now, a season of endings, of stripped branches, of quiet. Winter does not mean the tree is dead. Winter is when the tree saves its energy. Winter is when roots deepen. Winter is when growth becomes invisible. And then, without panic, spring arrives. So if you're in a winter, don't demand blossoms today. Ask instead, what roots can I strengthen? What practices can you build that will sustain you when the weather changes? Breath, sleep, honest conversation, therapy, meditation, nature, community, Boundaries, service, these are roots. They may not look dramatic, but they hold you. And when your mind says, "But I want certainty," you can answer with gentleness. Certainty is not required for peace. Peace is not a guarantee. Peace is a relationship with reality. Peace is the ability to be present even when life is unfinished. Now, let's return to attachment one more time, because this is where the deepest release often happens. Many people think they are suffering because they lost something. Sometimes they are suffering because they are trying to keep an identity alive. I was the successful one. I was the caretaker. I was the one who never failed. I was the one who was chosen. When that identity cracks, we feel like we are dying. But what is dying is not your true self. It is a story. There is a quiet beauty in this. When a story dies, you have room to become real. When you stop clinging to who you thought you had to be, you can meet who you are. And who you are is not a fixed object. You are a living process. This is Anika again. Impermanence not as loss, but as possibility. So here is a question you can carry like a candle through the dark. Who am I without the story? If you are not the relationship, who are you? If you are not the job title, who are you? If you are not the person who always keeps it together, who are you? The answer is not a sentence. The answer is a practice. The answer is presence. The answer is returning to breath, returning to the body, returning to kindness, returning to what is true in this moment. And sometimes what is true in this moment is, I'm hurting. Let that be true without making it permanent. I'm scared. Let that be true without making it destiny. I don't know. Let that be true without making it failure. Beginner's mind. This is how you build a life that can hold uncertainty. You stop demanding a permanent emotional state. You stop expecting to never feel fear again. You stop thinking spiritual growth means constant calm. Spiritual growth means you can feel fear and still choose wisely. You can feel grief and still be gentle. You can feel anger and still refuse to shoot the second arrow. You can feel uncertainty and still walk forward. And when you begin walking this way, you will notice something that might surprise you. Life starts responding differently, not because you controlled it, but because you changed the energy you bring. You speak more honestly. You choose more consciously. You react less impulsively. You become less available for what harms you. You become more available for what nourishes you. This is karma in motion, not as mysticism, but as practical cause and effect. Now, take a moment and check in with your breath again. Is it shallow? Let it deepen. Is your stomach tight? Let it soften. Is your mind racing ahead? Bring it back to the sound of your own breathing. This is not a small thing. This is the doorway. The present moment is where your power lives. Not in yesterday, not in tomorrow. Here. If you want, you can place a hand on your chest and say, even now, I can begin again. Because you can. You can begin again after a failure. You can begin again after betrayal. You can begin again after addiction. You can begin again after heartbreak. You can begin again after years of being lost. You can begin again after thinking it's too late. The beginning is not a dramatic event. The beginning is one honest breath. Your pain is not all of your life. Your uncertainty is not all of your life. Your past is not all of your life. And the reason some of this happened may not be visible yet, but the reason you can choose now is visible. The reason is that you are alive, still breathing, still capable of seeing, still capable of learning, still capable of kindness, still capable of change.